Model railroading has so much choice. What scale do I pick? What era do I model? What railroad do I model? Freelance or prototype? DC or DCC? And that's just what I can name off the top of my head. So how do you find your happy place in this hobby? Hey everybody, my name's Jimmy. Welcome to Coffee and Trains. Today I got some Green Mountain coffee roasters in there. If you want to tell me what kind of coffee you are drinking and have it featured just like these guys right here, you can do that in the comments below. Cheers, guys! If you are just starting out in model railroading, something has inspired you to jump down this rabbit hole. This is the ideal place to start. The thing that got you looking is what is probably going to make you the happiest in the model railroad world at first. So for example, if you saw a Lionel Christmas display, you're probably going to want to check out O-Gauge. If you saw a model railroad with beautiful scenery and detail, you're going to want to check out HO and N-Scale. It's going to take some time to learn the skills, but you have to start somewhere. I mentioned scales, and this is one of the biggest decisions you can make in the hobby in terms of your happiness level and just overall in the hobby. And I've done a bunch of videos on choosing a scale, and I'll put those at the end of this video. When figuring out what scale you want to do, you need to consider two main factors: how much space you have and what exactly you want in the model railroad. Do you have enough space in your area to run the trains that you want to in a certain scale? Like expansive scenery, you'll probably want to look at something smaller like N or Z if you don't have a ton of space. If you like detailed scenes with all sorts of little Easter eggs that you can put in there, I would look at HO scale or larger. If you like larger locomotives but still want to be able to run them in a reasonably compact space, you should take a look at 3-rail O-Gauge because they have tight radius turns for their scale. These things will get you started towards finding your happy place in model railroading. But what about your layout? How do you design it so that you are happy with the way it runs? Well, the first thing you need to do is figure out if you want to do a freelance railroad or model a prototype. A freelance railroad is one that you design yourself and do the track plans, scenery, and operation scheme in a way that you design and nothing else. Now, I would argue that most model railroads are some form of freelance. Prototype model railroading is where you work to emulate a real-world railroad. These could be sections of large Class 1 railroads, branch lines, or small short line railroads. You are working towards an accurate representation of that railroad. The middle ground is called proto-lancing. This is where your railroad is usually based on a real-world prototype, but is designed in a freelance style, so it is not entirely accurate to the real world. When people do this, a lot of people will use the what-if scenarios for this, like what if a railroad company still ran trains through this location, or what if passenger service ran through these towns instead of just freight. Freelancing and prototyping are less of an A-B choice and more of a spectrum on how realistic you want to run your railroad. Deciding freelance or prototype will also lean into the decision as to what road name you want to run. If you're prototype modeling, then the decision is pretty easy. But if you're freelancing, you can pick up whatever road name you want. Now, a road name is simply the name of the company that owns the locomotive. So think Union Pacific, CSX, Norfolk Southern, things like that. Those are road names. Different road names existed in different eras. For example, my favorite Golden Age road names are a tie between Southern and New York Central. Neither of those exist anymore, so if I want to model those, I'll need to model in the eras that they ran. This can play into finding what makes you happy in the hobby, because what you want on the layout can also influence what you put on the layout. For example, if you want a coal mine on your layout, you'll probably want to look at railroads like Norfolk Southern, CSX, Norfolk and Western, CNO, ones like that. But again, that doesn't matter if you just want a coal mine on the railroad and you don't care for much accuracy in the area that you're trying to model. One of the biggest decisions that is actually fairly easy to make in terms of what makes you happy is DC or DCC. These are the two main ways to power a model railroad. DC is simple direct current that you adjust the voltage for speed and you adjust the polarity for direction. DCC stands for Digital Command and Control and is going to give you more options like onboard controllable sounds and lights, as well as running multiple locomotives independently at the same time. Ultimately, when you're figuring all this out, something is going to click and you're going to see what makes you happy in model railroading. And it may not be just making an accurate model railroad. You may not even want to build a full-blown model railroad and opt for a loop of track that you can run your train collection. Or you may want to do nothing but switching and build a small, narrow shelf layout and detail them to the nth degree. The important thing is to understand what makes you happy is unique to you. And it's going to change over time. I started off in HO scale on a 4x8 sheet, and now I'm in N scale building L-shaped layouts like this one. Also, if you have found your happy place and it is different from others, don't criticize others for finding happiness in something different. Instead, share your common love for the hobby. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, drink some coffee, and happy railroading.